Welcome into the Roll Jays podcast, sponsored by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contracting. I'm your host, Casey Matthews, joined by Jimmy Allen and Alex Drake. Tonight, we're going to talk about recruiting, transfer portal. We're going to talk about little Austin Swartz, U to the blue, who's left for the Jays to get, and we all got to hop on the Huss Bus. It's rolling. So join us in the Roll Jays podcast.
Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmy Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmy Allen.
I'm the new Jimmy Allen, guys. And listen, this is my first time trying out this hosting part, and I just got to tell you, our fearless leader Jimmy Allen makes it look easy.
You're doing great, man. You're doing great.
I appreciate this a lot. Jimmy's trying to help me work on my podcast game as I get into a little bit more. So it might be a little more awkward today, so bear with us. But we're going to get through this.
Calling me the Stephen Ashworth of the team. I'm making everybody around me better.
So who am I? The Ryan Kalk? Can I be Ryan Kalkbrenner?
No, you're not tall enough. I think that just by de facto goes to Alex since he's 6'6".
And Alex played college basketball.
Yeah, people forget he's got ESPN stats. I think you're more the Sammy Osmani of the group. You kind of just keep us together. And
let me tell you something. I love me some Sammy Osmani.
Yeah, so there you go.
We know you do.
If I'm half as smart as Sammy Osmani, I'm going to make something of my life. So, but no, let's jump into it, guys. I mean, obviously the transfer portal is all the talk. Coach Mack and the guys are absolutely killing it. With the latest transfer that we signed, Austin Swartz from the University of Miami. We're going from the U to the blue, and I'm really excited about it. I want to hear what you guys think. You know what we're going to do today? We're going to start with Alex. Alex never gets to start. So we're starting with Alex. Alex, what do you think about Austin Swartz?
I kind of always take a back seat, which is fine. But,
That's why this is the last time we're letting Casey take the point.
It's going to be, guys. It's going to be.
I like Austin Swartz a lot. I think he's got a lot of tools. Casey and I were talking a little bit about it before we hopped on. Though from the film that I saw, I would have expected him to have more production. Now, when you play on a team that is pretty bad, they went 3-17 in conference. It's really hard to take a lot from any of that. But he shot 30% from three, which is better than what Jemiah Neal had been shooting before he showed up at Creighton. He's another bigger body guard, which I like. I think shooting 30% in limited shots doesn't tell me a whole lot. Some of it's going to be like we've heard Trey Ziegler talk about is the type of shots you're taking, things like that. But on his film, I saw him get to the rim a couple of times and have some really hard, difficult finishes, some acrobatic finishes. I like what he would potentially be able to bring this team off the bench, both from a scoring aspect. He actually looks like he's a solid creator. I saw him make some really good decisions in film. Just doesn't do it enough. But on the backside, we Jimmy and I have brought it up for a couple of years now, but we've talked about it a couple of times already this offseason. It seems like we're going after bigger guards finally, in a variety of aspects. And it kind of seems not necessarily Nick Graves is going to be the point guard, right? I think we all understand that. But between Josh Dix and Austin Swartz, it looks like you have a couple of guys that could play combo guard type of situation if he has to come off and they don't feel great about Ty Davis for whatever reason that night, whether it's matchups or something. You have a group of guys that can do a little bit more facilitating. Basically what I see out of Josh Dix and Austin Swartz isn't going to be there yet, but I think Josh Dix is obviously a much more polished version of what we got out of Jemiah in terms of what they need from him offensively. He's probably not at the same level that we want him to be defensively or rebounding, but I think Austin Swartz is the guy that you're going to try and mold into Jemiah Neal with a little bit more polish.
I like what you said there a little bit too about the fact that he played for a team that wasn't very good and also had a midseason coaching change. Jimmy, when you look at something like that happening in the middle of a season, having a coaching change, Now you're going to go play for a head coach who's established, who has a fantastic system, and you're going to go play for a team that is expected to compete at a high level. How do you see Austin coming in here, and what do you think the changes will be in just his overall attitude and mindset playing here versus playing in Miami?
Well, it's interesting for a couple of reasons, right? I mean, he's not the only one that's leaving a school going through a coaching change, right? Both the guys from Iowa also not mid-season by any stretch of the imagination, but leaving because Coach McCaffrey is out in Iowa City as well. And I can't help but look at Austin Schwartz and not necessarily see a Jemiah Neal, but see a Trey Alexander from body type and just the way that he plays the game, but a little more explosive. And to me, maybe not trying to get bigger guards, but getting back to what was successful in that stretch. Because yeah, we've had Stephen Ashworth and we've had Ryan Nemhard, but we've had Baylor Shireman and Trey Alexander as well. And then you add Jemiah Neal into that equation for the bigger body wing players. I mean, we've all kind of discussed on this show, should Isaac Trout move to the 5 or should he move back and play the wing? And should he be a tweener? And what does that look like? But it looks like they're going for length here. And it almost feels like they're opening up and saying, hey, listen, we're going to build off the camaraderie we had from a year ago and the structure from the team we had a year ago and make this a family-based environment to where if things don't go right at the place you're leaving, there's a place you can call home in the middle of the country and open up that door for players to come in. And as far as his game goes, I mean, he was a true freshman a year ago on a not a very good team. And I think it's Alex, you pointed like his productivity isn't where you thought it would be, but I think a lot of that is because of the system and the fact that he's a younger player. Now, Alex, you just brought up Ty Davis. This is a guy that played a lot as a freshman. Is that the expectations for him coming into Omaha too? Because that's a question that's going to have to answer it as well. We still don't know what the situation is with Fedor Zugic. I think the majority of us expect him to be back next year, but that's a decision Fedor and his family are going to have to make as well. So is he filling that 15th spot, or is he filling a different spot on this roster? And that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, that's interesting points there too, because we don't know what's going to happen with Fedor. I'm with you. I do expect that he'll be back. What I think is interesting is we don't know what his eligibility looks like.
It's a great point.
Probably won't know, for quite a while. So to me, this is a smart move. Let's not forget, this is a kid that was highly recruited, top 75 recruit, I believe, in the country coming out of high school. So this is
number 50. Yeah.
Number 50. Okay, so this is a young man who has game, and just a year removed from high school. I think he's got a golden opportunity here. And what I like for him too is that he's not going to come in and be expected to be a star or a stud right away, but he's going to have an opportunity to earn some minutes, earn a role, and then see where that takes him, as he progresses, in his Creighton career. And I think when you look at that, it's something we seem to talk about every year. Fans love to talk about it. Is how deep is this team? Is it the deepest team? Remember last year it was it's the deepest team Creighton's ever had, and I think I kind of said it too. It was like I didn't agree. Because to me depth is on paper is the same. Yeah.
Really? Okay. I mean, I don't think it was the deepest ever, but I think it was a little more deep than you thought it was at the beginning of the season.
I definitely think it was deeper than in recent memory.
Just because the way that Ty Davis played at the end of the season at the Garden, obviously that big game that he had, Jackson McAndrew being thrusted into the starting role at the beginning of the season, the fact that this team didn't fold when Pop Isaacs got hurt, I think that changes that discussion.
That's fair.
More to the correct people versus the Casey Matthews side of things.
Well, I don't know about that one, but I mean, I guess to me, it's more of like the production that you're getting from that depth. Like I know Ty played some, but like when you really look at, like, if you look at each position, I mean, there's a lot of minutes on Steve Ashworth legs, Jemiah Neal, Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Sure.
So to me, the depth was maybe a little bit misleading, but I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it every year if that's the kind of production that we're going to get. I just think it's interesting to look at is depth at each position. And to me, this is setting up for one of those years where we will have a true competition at each position. And I'm really excited for that because I do believe that competition will make you better. Now, certainly you're going to have Owen Freeman, you're going to have Josh Dix, and you're going to have Graves. I mean, Jackson, McAndrew, they're going to be penciled in as the starters from day one. It's going to be hard to unseat them. But I still think they're going to get pushed more, this year than we've had starters being pushed in the past. So Alex, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I have more of a question for you guys because where I see this going with who they've added and what they're doing and the current roster composition of who's coming back, I think what you're likely going to see is you probably bump Jason back into a competition with Jackson instead of starting both of them, but you still have length at the guard spots. Does Fedor move into the 2 or the 3 next to Josh Dix? I think, and then we haven't even gotten to the center spot yet, but theoretically, you're still missing probably 10 to 5 minutes of production there in terms of time on the floor, knowing that Owen Freeman was only a 25-minute a night guy. So does that mean you
As a
have
sophomore.
Isaac? Yeah,
Like,
as a
it's important to
sophomore.
point out.
And in, again, totally different system, totally different league, right? But does that mean Isaac Trout is playing more split between the 4 and the 5, which is something that Casey is like, I think the way they're recruiting leads to some lineup changes within the returning roster, more so than it necessarily means where they're filling out what they were already missing.
Well,
Yeah.
are we going to jump into what's left then? Is that where we're going to go here?
I mean, I think they were kind of in that natural segue here, like, and this is funny because I think we're probably all going to have a different opinion on really who we'd like for us to sign, because what's left. I mean, I think that can be, I mean, I guarantee you Coach Mack has a different opinion, than other guys on his staff. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Like, if you could sign a player, I'm not asking for a name, but a position and maybe even, what they bring to the table. Who would you be after right now?
Well, I think the Aleska Dimitrievich conversation gets really interesting because what
You
we've
killed
seen
that, by the way, Jimmy. That's fantastic.
lots of practice. The one thing that we've seen the staff do is they right now there's 13 filled spots when you throw Austin Schwartz into the equation. What they've tended to do over the last couple of years is fill 14 spots and leave a spot open for a Fedor Zugic. Now that's the question about this season. Is that what they choose to do this year and leave that spot open for another portal person down the road later in the discussion and have the eligibility conversation again, or maybe for an overseas player? Now, if they do that, I think you probably have to fill that spot with a third big with the possibility of redshirting Aleska. And now that's a completely different conversation if we're talking about NIL or whatever. But if they feel like from a size and a strength standpoint that he's not ready for Big East / Division I college basketball level competition, him sitting out of here is probably a necessity. Now, he may be further along than that. I don't know. The coaching staff probably doesn't know that yet either, but he's a legit 7'1" guy. And in today's market, can you afford to redshirt a guy like that? I don't know if you can. Is it a different conversation if there's eligibility questions and dual citizenship questions and things of that nature? Maybe there are, and it may just lead to him having to sit out another year. To me, I think the most notable spot that needs to be filled is maybe a backup big if there are issues with his eligibility.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to go back up big regardless. How many times were we scared to death when Ryan Kalkbrenner grabbed an ankle, right? So right now, you have all your eggs in the basket of Owen Freeman and a guy that we're not 100% sure as a group. I'm sure the staff has a better inkling on it, but we're not 100% sure on his eligibility in Aleska. But on top of that, again, based off of minutes that Owen Freeman has played, plus what you expect to get out of a freshman that's probably not fully developed from a physicality standpoint, you're missing probably somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes at minimum right now. So I think you got to get a big there. The big that I would like to see, I'd like to see a guy that can hit the top of the key three in the pick and pop game once in a while. But really, I need another big like Ryan that can pass the ball pretty well and doesn't necessarily turn into a black hole when they catch it. That's what you get out of a lot of 7-footers naturally, is they just try and score the ball when they catch it on the block, and sometimes that's not there. And this offense is built around shooters being around that guy. So that's my first one, and then my second one is just a really good rebounding forward. Like we're still missing.
I mean, let's
Taylor
just do a whole
Shireman.
new roster then, Alex.
No,
if you're gonna start doing...
there's 2 spots open, so that's fair.
I think you're missing. You're like Jemiah Neal did an okay job of filling Baylor Sharman's job on the glass as well as Jason Green did, but you're still missing some rebounds, especially on the offensive end. That's where we missed Baylor the most, was not only obviously his ability to create and his ability to shoot but weren't matched, but his ability to get clutch offensive rebounds. And I think I don't know who the junkyard dog type of guy is on this roster right now. That doesn't mean that, I've had hopes for Jason Green to do that, and he's done it in spurts. And this year, I think he did it very well. But if Jason Green's not out on the floor, who is that guy? And that's what you need.
Yeah. So I'm going to go in a totally different direction. I won't touch the bigs because here's why. They're too expensive. So from an NIL perspective, I just don't think you're going to have the money to go out and get another big that can play. And then you're immediately creating somewhat of a controversy with our guy, Alaska, however you say that, Jimmy. You're absolutely killed. Yes, him. I think you immediately start a controversy there that I don't think you want to start. So I'm going to shy away from that. And I also think, too, is he's going to play if he's eligible, which I think he's eligible. I don't think we would have signed him. So I think he's going to play. And then if you still want some of that, Alex, I think that's where you just pivot to Isaac Trout. I don't think you need to go get another guy when that guy's already on the roster. Where I think you go, and I texted a little bit with my guy Lucas, and he disagrees with me too. So I'm really by myself here. I still think you need a shooter. I still think you need a sniper.
Can I ask you? Do you think that because of how much Nick Graves was used on screens and set up for one-on-one situations versus shooting in the free open range?
Yes, I just feel like the drop off from Steven to Nick from a shooting perspective is big. And now, again, I love Nick Graves and what he brings to the table. I think he's going to be wonderful for us. But when we go to the bench, I just feel like it would be nice to have somebody, and I'm blanking on any names right now, but just somebody that when they check in, the entire coaching opposing coaching staff has to stand up and go, he's a shooter, don't leave him. You can run some sets for him. You can sub him in late shot clock situations. You can do some special things for him and take advantage of some of Mac's playbook with that. And when I look at the roster right now, I don't see it. Obviously, Jackson to me is probably our best shooter coming in. I know Josh can shoot it, but just somebody coming off the bench that when you go to the bench where you're not losing that perimeter shooting at a high clip, that's what I would like to see us add. And I just think it's got to be a wing. I think
so somebody separate from IT is what you're saying. Somebody separate from Isaac Trout.
I just think you got to stay away from that five. Like, okay,
that pick and pop.
Stay with me here. I think there's a difference between a 4-5 and a 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I think you got to stay away from that 5-4. I think you got to be in that 2-3 small ball 4 if you want to do it. That's where I would like to see us go. Not somebody with any ball handling responsibilities, nothing of that nature, just a wing that can really shoot the rock.
Well, I think that's what I think the one guy that we're not talking about then is, what does Hudson Greer look like? What is he able to do as a freshman? Because his highlights would indicate he's that guy, by the way.
And if he is that guy, problem solved. And then I don't know what you do. I mean, at that point, you don't really have needs.
Well, Casey, we talked about it in the last episode. Like, is this a roster where, they don't necessarily fill it? And if they do fill it, is it just a couple more culture guys? Is it another version of Sammy Osmani? Like,
yeah,
we don't know where everybody is. So it's hard to answer it that being the answer.
Well, go ahead, Case.
Go ahead, Jay. I'll say the problem is, though, when you opt in now, you can't bring those walk-ons. You can't have those guys. So like you're paying everybody. So
no, I get that, but like Sammy Osmani or the next iteration of Sammy Osmani is going to be significantly cheaper, right? Like than normal.
Yeah, for sure. But then I think it becomes, are you better off just holding the scholarship? Like I 100% believe we're holding the 15th because too many weird things happen in recruiting nowadays and in transfer portal where somebody gets in the portal and there's just not that many teams that have a scholarship. So
Well,
I
and
definitely think we're holding it.
the other conversation that we aren't having that leads us into our next topic too perfectly is how much different does Alan Huss's handprints on fingerprints on this offense look as opposed to what Ryan Miller was doing a year ago, and Greg McDermott's system, albeit very similar to what Alan Huss likes to do, but very different. I think we all kind of agree that there were times over the last 2 years that this team sorely missed an Alan Huss on the sideline when they were kind of stagnant and couldn't get some offense out of their top two players. And that's nothing against Ryan Miller. That's just, Alan Huss had a lot more time in Greg McDermott's system and had a lot more in common with the system style of offense. So that's the other thing is, does this look different compared to the last 2 years with Alan Huss on the sideline compared to Ryan Miller calling the offense?
That's a great point, Jimmy. And I think, with Huss, I think what's funny is when you look at some of these guys we're signing, they have extended eligibility here.
Yep.
So these are guys that Alan Huss most likely will be coaching as the actual head coach here, whether that's next year or 2 years.
Heard somebody say 5 years today. Good luck if that's the case.
That ain't happening, pal. But
that was my response as well.
Yeah, I hope you said pal too. So
big pal actually.
The big pal did not say
it was
that.
actually Ryan Kalkbrenner. I was talking to Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Ryan Kalkbrenner, unbelievable. I'm gonna call him right now.
Ryan Kalkbrenner looked at me and said, "Jimmy, what are you talking about?"
Yeah, but I do think that's an interesting point though. Is recruiting under Huss versus Coach Mack, and gosh, guys, I think it's going to be pretty similar. I do. When I look at High Point, Alex and I were talking about this earlier. Style of play is similar. But
the philosophy is what I'm interested by too, because I remember 2 or 3 years ago, Mac talked about wanting to build through the draft versus free agency and referring to high school versus the transfer portal, right? And it seems like that opinion and philosophy has shifted just a little bit, but it looks like they're trying to kind of they're trying to mold the two, right? How do we develop and get younger players and keep them here to when they're old, and then just sprinkle in players through the transfer portal and necessity points only?
Yeah, no, I do think you have to look at it. You got to look at it from that perspective and that lens. And there's a lot of different ways. That's why I love this podcast, that we can break stuff like this down, really kind of get into the detail. And this podcast is brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. I want to make sure we thank our sponsors because we love our sponsors. And while we're at it, guys,
this podcast is called the Roll Jays Podcast, by the way.
The Roll Jays Podcast, and you should subscribe to the Big East Energy Network on YouTube. Follow us on all of our socials. Do the whole thing, guys. We're all about Creighton basketball. We want to bring you all the content and all the stuff, and that kind of leads us into some news that we're really excited to announce. We actually are going to have the driver of the Huss Bus on the show here coming up soon with an interview with the next head coach of Creighton basketball, and Alan Huss. And I, for one, am really excited to do that, to talk to Alan and kind of break down what we see coming up next for the Jays.
Ace is going to ask him what his salary looks like.
That's the first question. We're gonna talk to him about roster construction, what that looks like, what his role is this year, and a lot more. So I hope you guys will join us on that one. But go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, I think my biggest question for him is, and we've got to ask we've asked Trey Ziegler this a couple of times, is, you've been here once on the staff, you left, took a head coaching job. You're obviously coming back for a head coach and waiting, but what in his eyes, what's his biggest difference with this team apart from his title? Is he going to be more hands-on in XYZ spot than previous? And Jimmy brought up, is he calling the offense versus Ryan Miller? But do we know that's his role this year, or is he going to focus on defense? We don't know. And I'm just curious. I'll be
shocked, Alex, if he's doing anything but offense. I'll be shocked because he is such a good offensive mind. I just don't know how yet. Now, it also could be a scenario too where this is fun to talk about, where maybe Mac does want to give him a little bit of that experience here, because coaching in the Big East is different than coaching in the Big South. And so maybe Mac lets him have some of those responsibilities as well. I'm excited for him, honestly. I think it's going to be so cool for him, and I think to be able to do this kind of alongside your mentor and Coach Mac I
think it's really cool that they get to do it together. I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so rare, and I hope they
It
both
is,
enjoy it for as long as they get to do
and
it.
I don't know if we ever talk. I personally think it's a 1-year thing. I think it's one. I do.
I
I know some of you
and
guys think maybe
I don't
longer.
I don't know how I don't know anybody that would leave a head coaching job for more than a year, to wait for more than a year. It's just that from a contractual standpoint, from probably the money that it's going to cost to get Allen Huss on this roster, it just doesn't make sense. The one thing that we spent this whole episode talking about filling the roster and what's left and what do they do from a player standpoint. The one conversation we haven't had is what's next for Mitch Ballock, because I think a
Mm,
lot of people assume that if this last coaching spot wasn't Mitch Ballock's, if Allen Huss didn't turn down the opportunity to come back in this coach and waiting situation, that Mitch Ballock would probably be appointed that last
yeah.
spot. Now he's out of eligibility for his GA year, so they're gonna
Unless
have
he
to
goes
figure
back
out.
to school. Unless he goes back to school.
Yep.
But
Does he want to do
here's what
that?
no, I don't think so. But I don't think you let Mitch Ballock go.
Sure.
And I think they'll find a way to keep him, whether that's make a spot for him. Uh, they're gonna keep Mitch on that staff. I just would
I would hope
be
so.
floored. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be floored.
he's clearly earned his keep. The one interesting thing that does do, Case, and this is something I wanted to ask you about,
Yeah,
is it opens up another GA role. Now you clearly can't do that, so top candidates off the board. Marcus
appreciate that.
Zagorowski just retired from basketball. Like, does he want to get into coaching, and would he be interested to come back? Do we get the band back together?
Let me tell you something, guys. I would be ecstatic to get Marcus back in Omaha, as you guys well know. Um, that's a very interesting question, Jimmy. It's a very interesting question, um, and I don't think that it's completely off the table.
Sure.
I'll say that,
Because
but
I mean, because you not only do you have Mitch Ballock in this situation, but Jahens Menegad just left
uh,
to follow Ryan Miller as well to Murray State.
yeah,
So you got those two GA positions essentially open now, and
you do now, and how
certain people
Huss
need
is going to have a
paychecks.
guy. You got to think Huss.
Yeah,
Huss will
obvious.
have a guy
Yeah,
that he could bring. You never know what's going to happen there. But that's a great question. And speaking of great questions, I do want to say this to the people that are watching: if you have questions for us, let us know in the comments. Send Jimmy DMs on
yeah. Follow us on
Instagram.
Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at RollJ's
Yeah,
Podcast.
we would love to get some questions, and we will honestly look at them and answer them. So if you have them, shoot them to us. So, Alex, Jimmy, you got anything else before we wrap it here?
I'm just going to throw in if Huss does bring on his own GA, my early favorite for him to bring is Antoine Young, who was just with him at High Point. Had spent some time at UNK.
Speaking of getting the band
say
back together,
I say
Yeah.
that without knowing if Antoine can technically take a GA role
Okay.
right now. But
Could we get
he is
the
an Omaha
return
guy.
of Ty Nurse? Could we get Ty Nurse back as a GA for the second time through? I mean, there's just so many unknowns that we will have to break down with Coach Huss tomorrow. But hey,
We
listen,
steal great bids from Oklahoma City.
I think anything's on the table at this point. So we're going to
Doug
break it all down
McDermott, the new GA.
with. I don't think Doug will take it. I don't know if it pays enough.
might be a little bit of a pay cut for Doug, maybe just a
yeah.
little bit.
But hey, we appreciate you guys bearing with us. My first time actually hosting the show, but this has been another episode of the Roll Jays podcast, sponsored by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. I'm your host, Casey Matthews, joined today by Jimmy Allen and Alex Drake. We had an unbelievable time today. Looking forward to recording the next episode with the coach in waiting, Allen Huss. This is the Roll Jays.